So informed consent is a written process that involves a number of different components. Let's emphasize the most important. It has to be voluntary. It is crucially important for a provider to ensure it's voluntary by dispelling any consequences to a choice that he or she may disagree with, and to be very careful that coercion is not included as part of that. In a psychiatric population that's an inpatient, you want to make sure that people are free of any coercive effects, such as, well, if I don't do this because the doctor wants me to, he's going to keep me locked up longer. That would be an example if those two issues are connected that could be viewed as coercive. And it's based on three other clinical assessment prongs. Does the individual being provided care have decision-making capacity? It requires the MD or provider to provide education, and it requires the individual getting services to comprehend that information. So the one that is most important is the decision-making capacity assessment. All the rest are important too, but the decision-making capacity is much more complicated. Decision-making capacity means a number of different things. One, does the patient understand the information you're giving to them? Two, can they manipulate the information, understand the pros and cons, the good, the bad, the risks, the benefits of the treatment proposed, and most importantly, of not getting the treatment proposed? Can they process that information? And can they then give you back a reasonable approximation of what you're proposing? They don't have to parrot the provider, they're not medically trained, but they have a reasonable by MD assessment or provider assessment of what they're consenting to. We have shifted away from the emphasis of getting the signature on a piece of paper, as I alluded before. It is a process, not a signature, and really focused on getting providers to spend reasonable amounts of time and energy educating people, educating every patient in our facilities, largely even to assure that they have information to the best of their ability, including individuals with guardianships where a court has already said they can't give informed consent. We are giving the consent for you. Those people still need education. They are still having medications given to them that can affect their lives. It may not be the education you give someone else, but it is supposed to be tailor-made to a whole host of things: the intellectual abilities of the patient, their ability to understand, their language capacity, keeping in mind cultural beliefs they might have, and the list could go on. So that by doing that, everyone gets some form of education. And while the patient has responsibilities of their decision-making and our assessment of it, we have responsibilities as providers to provide that education. That education needs to be reasonably documented. Do I have to write down everything I said to a patient? Absolutely not. But a reasonable approximation. Most clinicians, and we encourage this in our policy, to give people written information, because then it re-emphasizes the education piece. Some people are verbal learners, other people are written learners. This way people get what they need and they can go back and revisit it again. A process, not at one point in time. I would argue, lastly, that as a process that's ongoing, just because you did it last week, last month, any questions related to your medications when you're meeting with an individual, let's say we're doing medication informed consent, any updates you think you need, any information, again, it's going to vary by patient. Pay attention to the verbal cues they're asking, but also proactively offer information